She never paid attention to the exact time she woke up until it started happening every night. At first, it felt like coincidence, a kind of small, forgettable detail that your brain dismisses as stress, or a strange dream pattern, or maybe even the side effect of drinking coffee too late. But by the fifth night, when her eyes shot open in the darkness and her phone screen glowed back at her with 3:17 a.m., she felt the first real shiver in her bones. The kind of shiver that tells you something is wrong before your mind can catch up. The air in her bedroom felt heavier than usual, colder, too still. She lay there, listening, confused and irritated, telling herself she would fall asleep again if she just ignored it. But then she heard it, the soft, faint sound she had somehow missed on the earlier nights. A clicking noise. Not loud, not urgent, but precise. Like something was tapping rhythmically against the wall. She lifted her head, listening in the dark. 1, 2, 3. A pause. Then again. Clicking, clicking. Slow. Intentional. Close. At first, she thought it was coming from the window, maybe a branch brushing against the glass, except she lived on the 4th floor, and the nearest tree was far too short to reach her apartment. Then she thought maybe it was the radiator, but the sound wasn't metallic, it was organic, like fingernails, or joints, something bending, something tapping, something moving. She sat up, turned on the lamp, and the sound stopped instantly. Just like that. Silence. The kind that presses on your eardrums. She got out of bed, checked the walls, pressed her ear against them, stood at the window, even crouched down beside the bed to see if something had fallen. Nothing. Everything looked completely normal. She returned to bed, irritated, exhausted, and told herself it was probably the building settling. Old wood, old pipes, old wiring, it made sense. Or at least it helped her sleep again. The next night, she woke again. 3:17 a.m. She didn't even need to check this time. She knew. Her eyes flew open to the same cold air, the same stillness, and the same clicking returning like an unwelcome guest. But this time, the sound seemed closer, not inside the walls on them, like something was crawling across the surface, dragging itself inch by inch. She turned on the lamp again. Silence. She turned it off. The clicking returned immediately, faster this time, less patient, as if annoyed she had interrupted. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, she searched her entire apartment for signs of pests, loose pipes, anything that could explain it. Nothing. But she wasn't the type to panic. She was practical, logical, grounded. So she made a decision. She would record herself sleeping, not because she expected to see anything strange, just to reassure herself. Create evidence that she was imagining things. Prove to herself the clicking sound was nothing, maybe even something she only heard in dreams. That night, she set up her phone camera on a tripod across the room, facing her bed. She made sure the angle captured both the headboard and the wall behind it. She pressed record, set her phone to airplane mode, turned off the lights, and climbed into bed. She tried her best to sleep, but exhaustion eventually won. When her eyes opened hours later, her phone battery was drained, but the recording had captured all 8 hours. Heart pounding, she made coffee and sat on the couch with her laptop, transferring the video. The first few hours were normal. She tossed and turned a bit, breathed quietly, adjusted her blanket. Nothing unusual. Then the timestamp hit 3:16 a.m. She felt her heartbeat thud against her ribs. She leaned closer to the screen. At exactly 3:17 a.m., her body shifted in the bed. Not unnaturally, just subtly, like someone had tugged at her shoulder. But that wasn't the part that made her blood turn to ice. Because behind her on the wall directly above her bed, the wallpaper moved. At first, it was so slight she almost missed it. A ripple, a small, gentle bulge, pushing outward from the inside, as though something underneath the wall was pressing against it. Then a thin, pale appendage longer than a finger, jointed like a spider's leg, slipped out from beneath the wallpaper and curled downward. It tapped the wall 3 times. Click, click. The same sound she had heard every night. The limb hovered above her head, twitching with odd, sharp movements that didn't match anything human or animal. And then slowly, deliberately, it retracted back into the wall, disappearing as the wallpaper flattened again like nothing had ever disturbed it. She covered her mouth with her hand. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She paused the video, rewound it, watched the moment again and again, refusing to believe it was real. But it didn't change. It didn't go away. Something had been inside the wall. Something had reached out to her. She checked the rest of the video. Nothing else happened. That single moment, the tapping creature was the only event. The landlord brushed it off immediately. Old building. Wall shift. Mice sometimes get inside. She knew he didn't believe what he was saying, but she didn't bother arguing. She needed answers, not excuses. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat upright in bed, lights on, blanket pulled to her chest. And still 3:17 a.m. arrived, and the clicking returned. Except now she wasn't asleep. She was awake, watching, listening. The clicking grew louder, more purposeful, like it was reacting to her presence. She leaned forward, heart slamming, eyes fixed on the wall where she had seen the limb. Suddenly, the clicking stopped. And then she heard something worse: breathing. Slow, raspy, hollow breathing, coming from inside the wall. She froze. Her breath caught. She couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't blink. The breathing grew louder, 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 until it sounded like something was pressing its face against the other side of the plaster, inhaling her scent. She grabbed her things and ran out of the apartment, barefoot, shaking uncontrollably. She slept in her car that night. The next morning, she returned with 2 hardware tools, a hammer and a crowbar. If something was inside the wall, she would see it. She would expose it. She cracked open the plaster near the bed small at first, then larger, and found nothing. Nothing but wood, dust, old insulation, empty space, no creatures, no holes, no signs of anything living. She felt crazy. Was she losing her mind? No, the video proved it. But if the creature wasn't inside the wall, where was it? That night, she moved her camera again, this time facing the entire room, using 2 angles, one on her and one on the wall. She set up a lamp with a motion sensor. She sprinkled baby powder along the baseboards to catch footprints or movement. She even slept in the opposite corner of the room, far from the wall. But still 3:17 a.m. came like a curse. The first night Emma set up the camera, she barely slept, lying awake in the heavy silence of her room as the recording light blinked in the dark like a tiny red heartbeat. The house feeling unnaturally still, as if it too was waiting for something. When the clock hit 3:17 a.m., she was already awake, watching the moment she usually jolted up from sleep. But this time nothing seemed to happen. No noise, no movement, just an eerie stillness that made her skin crawl. The next morning, desperate to know the truth, she reviewed the footage and at first saw nothing unusual, just herself sleeping, until the timestamp hit 3:17 and the shadows in her room subtly stretched like they were being pulled by something unseen, and then her bedroom door slowly opened by itself. What entered wasn't a person or an animal, but a distorted figure with a spine bent the wrong way and movements that looked delayed, unnatural, wrong. It stood beside her bed and leaned over her sleeping face, the camera catching its reflection in the wardrobe's smooth, pale skin where a face should have been. Emma watched, frozen, as the faceless entity hovered inches above her, then suddenly snapped its head directly toward the camera at an inhuman speed before the footage cut to static, leaving her trembling and breathless with the horrifying realization that whatever visited her at 3:17 a.m. wasn't a human. Worse, it had been watching her long before she noticed, and now that it knew she was aware of its presence, She felt certain that things like that didn't like being seen. Emma spent the entire day trapped inside her trembling body, replaying the horrifying footage in her mind, the faceless figure standing over her, the unnatural tilt of its head, the moment it snapped its attention toward the camera as if it could sense her fear, and the sickening truth that it had been entering her room long before she noticed. She didn't leave the house, too terrified to step outside, yet too terrified to stay inside, feeling as if the creature's presence still lingered in every shadow and corner of her home. As night approached, dread knotted itself around her ribs, squeezing tighter with every minute. She set up the camera again and forced herself to stay awake, but around 3:05 a.m. sleep stole her consciousness. And when she jolted awake at exactly 3:17 a.m., the room felt charged, thick with invisible pressure. The shadows twisted unnaturally, and her bedroom door, just like in the footage, was opened by a sliver. She froze as something shifted in the darkest corner of the room. The tall, malformed figure straightened into the moonlight, its limbs bent incorrectly, its body trembling with unnatural motion, its smooth, featureless face tilting sharply in her direction, as if studying how she looked awake. She whispered, "Stay back." And the creature paused before retreating into the shadows, as if responding to a command she didn't to give, disappearing into darkness until dawn chased the night away. But the footage revealed something even worse. The creature was taller than she saw with her eyes, its body glitching and distorting as if it was struggling to maintain a shape in her world. It reached its long finger toward her sleeping chest, making her body twitch like something inside her responded, and then walked directly up to the camera to lean inches from the lens before raising a single finger and pointing deliberately at her sleeping face. A threat, a warning, a claim. Desperate, Emma begged her friend Mara to come over. Mara agreed, though she assumed Emma was spiraling from stress. That night, they set up 2 cameras and stayed awake together. But as the minutes ticked toward that cursed time, 3:17 a.m., the tension became suffocating. The air grew unnaturally cold, and when the digital clock's numbers shifted from 3:16 to 3:17, Emma felt the same crushing presence pour into the room. Like the darkness itself was stepping forward, and she realized with a sickening certainty that the creature wasn't just coming for her anymore. It had noticed Mara too. When the clock struck 3:17 a.m., the room seemed to exhale a cold, unnatural breath that made both Emma and Mara sit up instantly, their hearts pounding as an invisible pressure pushed down on them, the air thickening like they were underwater. Mara whispered, "Do you feel that?" But Emma couldn't answer because something was already happening. The shadows on the walls stretched upward, bending at strange angles, and then the bedroom door, which they had locked, began to click and tremble, as if something was slowly, patiently turning the handle from the other side. The lock slid open on its own. The door creaked an inch, then another. Mara grabbed Emma's wrist so tightly her nails dug into her skin. A tall, contorted silhouette emerged in the doorway, so unnaturally thin that it looked like a shadow that had peeled itself off the wall. And as it stepped inside, its limbs clicked loudly, joints bending backwards like broken branches. Mara gasped, "Emma, what is that?" But the creature didn't look at Mara. It focused entirely on Emma, tilting its faceless head to an angle so sharp it looked painful, as if studying her with invisible eyes. Then it moved fast, stuttering, glyph-like steps that brought it halfway across the room in seconds, and Emma felt a wave of nausea crash through her body, like her chest was being pulled forward by something she couldn't see. The creature raised a hand, long and skeletal, and pointed directly at Emma before turning its head slowly toward Mara, acknowledging her existence for the first time. Its faceless surface rippled like shifting skin. Suddenly, the camera in the corner began flickering its light, blinking violently as if the creature's presence disrupted electronics. The air buzzed, electricity crackling in the silence, and then, without warning, the creature lunged forward, not toward Emma, but toward the camera, slamming the room into darkness as the feed died. Mara screamed, scrambling backward, grabbing Emma's arm and dragging her out of the room as the sound of clicking limbs filled the darkness behind them. They ran down the hallway, stumbling in the pitch black, Emma's breath breaking, Mara shouting her name, but the creature didn't chase them. It simply watched from the top of the stairs, its silhouette impossibly tall, its head tilted in that same horrifying curiosity, as if deciding what to do next. When they finally burst out the front door into the freezing night air, Emma realized with choking terror that the creature had chosen her, and it wasn't stopping. Not now, not ever. Emma and Mara didn't stop running until they reached the dimly lit parking lot outside the building. Hearts pounding, lungs burning, but even as they caught their breath, Emma felt it the same suffocating, icy presence that had haunted her every night, pressing against her from a distance, as if the creature was observing them, patient and eternal, waiting for the exact moment to strike. Mara tried to calm her, insisting that it was impossible for something like that to exist, that it must have been a combination of sleep deprivation, fear, and imagination. But Emma knew better because she could feel it in the way the shadows from the building stretched unnaturally toward them, the way the air felt heavier near the steps, like gravity itself had warped to pull them back toward the apartment. She fumbled with her phone, desperate to check the camera footage, and when she did, her stomach dropped. The files had changed, or rather, the creature had changed them. The original recordings now showed moments she had never seen before. It standing at the foot of her bed while she was asleep, it hovering in the corner while she watched Mara sleep, it lifting her arms as if testing her reactions. And in one frame, impossibly, it appeared inside Mara's bedroom as well, a flicker of faceless terror that made her friend scream and pulled the phone away. Panic surged through them both as Emma realized the creature wasn't limited by walls or doors. It moved through dimensions, through shadows, and through time, stepping in and out of their reality whenever it pleased. And that realization struck deeper than fear. It wasn't here just to scare her. It had marked her, claimed her, and was toying with her now. Mara, shaking, demanded they leave the city, call someone, anyone. But Emma knew there was nowhere to go. The creature could follow her anywhere, appear in any reflection, any shadow, any room, waiting for the perfect moment to remind her that sleep was no longer safe, that every second alone, every moment spent unaware, it could be there, silently observing, silently testing, silently learning. And the last horrifying thought that hit her as the sun began to rise, leaving long, twisted shadows across the empty parking lot, was that at 3:17 a.m. tonight, it would return, and this time, it would not just watch. The day passed in a haze of fear and exhaustion, Emma barely speaking, her eyes constantly darting to every shadow, as if expecting the faceless creature to emerge from the walls or ceiling at any moment. And when night fell again, she and Mara returned to the apartment with the cameras set up in every corner, bracing themselves for the inevitable. 3:17 a.m. approached like a predator stalking its prey, and when the clock struck the cursed time, the house seemed to inhale a chill that froze their bones, the shadows twisting unnaturally across the walls as a soft, deliberate clicking echoed through the room. Each tap measured and mocking, and then they saw it, the towering, emaciated figure gliding silently from shadow to shadow, its faceless head tilting with impossible angles, its long limbs clicking and scraping against the floor. And as it drew closer to the bed, Emma felt her body stiffen, as if paralyzed by a force she could neither see nor understand. The cameras caught every horrifying detail, the creature bending low over Emma, its hand hovering above her chest, causing her heart to pound in erratic bursts. And then it turned toward Mara, who screamed instinctively, and the thing tilted its head once more, acknowledging both of them, its faceless surface rippling like liquid, reflecting 1,000 horrors at once, before suddenly leaping backward with unnatural speed, vanishing into the darkness just long enough for them to think it was gone. But it wasn't gone, it had left its mark. Scratches appeared on the walls, deep and jagged, not from nails but from some inhuman force that had carved its message. "I see you, Always. Emma's stomach churned as the realization hit her. This creature wasn't bound by walls, by logic, by any rules of reality she knew. It existed outside of time, outside of comprehension, and had been watching her long before she ever knew its name or its purpose. The terror escalated when a soft whisper seemed to curl around their ears, an impossible, breathy voice saying words Emma couldn't understand yet somehow felt compelled to obey. And as the lights flickered violently, Mara tried to run, but Emma's legs wouldn't move. They were frozen in place, caught between fear and the undeniable presence of something that had claimed the room, the night, and perhaps their very lives. The cameras continued recording, capturing the impossible. Shadows bending and warping independently of light, the faint glimmer of the creature appearing in multiple places at once. And at exactly 3:23 a.m. sound unlike any other filled the air. A low guttural resonant hum vibrating through their bones, announcing not a departure but a warning. And Emma realized with crushing horror that they had survived this night only because the entity allowed them to. And when the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, the room fell silent, but the air remained thick with intent. And Emma understood more clearly than ever that the faceless visitor would return at 3:17 a.m. every night, until it had finally taken what it wanted, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The following night, Emma couldn't sleep at all. She stayed awake, huddled beneath the covers, her eyes fixed on the digital clock as it ticked closer to 3:17 a.m., and Mara, exhausted and frightened, had fallen into a restless doze beside her, unaware that the moment was nearly upon them when the air suddenly shifted, thickening and chilling with a presence that pressed on their chests and wrapped around their throats. And then the clicking began again, soft at first, distant, but growing steadily louder, deliberate, almost conversational. And Emma could see shadows twisting unnaturally along the walls, forming angles that made her stomach churn, until from the far corner the faceless creature emerged, taller, thinner, more impossibly distorted than ever before, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait that defied physics, its limbs scraping against the floor, tilting its featureless head in that same horrifyingly curious manner. And as it stepped closer, Emma noticed something she hadn't before. Faint, dark veins rippling across its pale skin like a living network of shadows, pulsating in rhythm with the strange hum that now filled the room, vibrating through every bone in her body. Mara woke with a scream, and the creature turned to her for the first time, its body bending and stretching in ways no human spine could, tilting sideways as though testing the boundaries of her fear before shifting its attention back to Emma, who felt an invisible force pin her to the mattress, her heart thudding violently, her lungs struggling for air. And then, impossibly, it lifted one long, jointed hand toward her chest, and she could feel it, not physically, but mentally probing, testing, reaching inside her very mind, sifting through memories and thoughts like a thief. The camera footage they were recording flickered and warped, capturing impossible angles. The creature appearing simultaneously in the corner near the door and above the bed, as if it existed across multiple points at once, and a whisper low and chilling echoed in their ears, saying words Emma couldn't consciously comprehend, yet understanding bloomed within her like ice in her veins. It was claiming her, marking her, and no matter how far she ran, how long she hid, it would always return at 3:17 a.m. As the minutes dragged into eternity, the creature leaned so close that Emma could feel the cold emptiness where its face should have been. And then it paused, tilting its head one last time as if deciding whether to take her fully into its realm or prolong the torment, before it receded into the shadows slowly, the clicking fading, the unnatural hum dissolving, leaving the room eerily quiet, yet nothing felt normal. Mara clutched Emma's arm, trembling as the pale light of dawn seeped through the blinds, and Emma realized with a final, soul-crushing certainty that the creature wasn't just visiting. They had become part of its world, and from this moment on, nothing, not sleep, not light, not distance, would ever protect them from the faceless thing that awaited the next 3:17 a.m. to resume its silent, relentless watch. As the sun rose, Emma sat frozen in the silence of her apartment, Mara trembling beside her, and though the shadows appeared normal in the morning light, Emma knew better. The faceless creature had not gone, had never gone. It had merely retreated, waiting, patient, eternal. And when she glanced at the clock, she noticed with a sickening dread that it was exactly 3:16 a.m. And she understood with absolute clarity that in 60 seconds it would return, stepping through wall shadows and the very fabric of her reality, unseen but undeniably present. And no matter what she did, no matter where she ran or hid, she would wake again at 3:17 a.m. Face to faceless face, her mind and body violated by something beyond human comprehension, leaving her with a single horrifying truth that would haunt her forever. There is no escape, and it has already chosen you.